Good evening. Welcome to Money Mondays, a four-part series on legal rights and options during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for joining us for our third installment on financial resources for small businesses. We hope you had an opportunity to view one of our prior discussions on how to quickly access stimulus payments and circuit breakers, or how to protect your rights as a tenant during the pandemic. Before we begin tonight's session, we have a few updates to share with you. On April 15th, the Treasury Department announced that people who receive Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, will not have to file tax returns to claim a stimulus payment. SSI recipients will automatically receive a stimulus check. This initial payment will not include the $500 allowance per dependent child, but recipients can claim the $500 benefit by registering online in the IRS portal. Additional information about stimulus payments and frequently asked questions can be found online at irs.gov/coronavirus. Additionally, for a brief housing update, on April 17th, the Missouri Supreme Court extended court closures from May 1st to May 15th. This means that eviction cases will not be heard in court prior to mid-May. That will give you an additional week or two to work out a resolution with your landlord before an eviction case can be filed. We recognize that things are rapidly changing around us. We will continue to keep you informed of any new developments as the series continues. At Legal Services, we act for others. We are a voice for justice, and our actions provide hope. We want you to know that we remain dedicated to helping individuals, families, and small businesses in need during the COVID-19 crisis. We believe that community partnerships and cross-collaborations are essential to addressing client needs. We are proud to partner with the St. Louis Regional Financial Empowerment Coalition, Money Smart Month, and Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner to bring reliable information about financial resources available to small businesses. Tonight, we are joined by Ms. Lisa Potts of the St. Louis Regional Financial Empowerment Coalition and Mr. Timothy O'Connell of Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner. Mr. O'Connell will guide our discussion about federal relief available under the CARES Act, and Ms. Potts will walk you through additional grants and resources for small businesses and neighborhoods. Please note that the presenters will not be able to see your questions or comments while speaking. Presenters will try to address your concerns live at the end of the presentation. At this time, we'd like to acknowledge and thank members of Legal Services Community Economic Development Program for their assistance in the chat section. I will now turn the presentation over to our guest.
Hi, good evening. Tim O'Connell here, lawyer with Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner. Very happy to talk with you tonight here on a Money Monday. And I'm joined by Lisa Potts. Lisa, how are you? She's on mute. So I'm gonna lead off the discussion talking about the federal response to coronavirus and the federal efforts to help small businesses. And we're gonna then turn over to Lisa Potts, who's gonna talk about grants that are available for neighborhood groups, regional grants, and other grants. Let's go to the next slide, if you would, please. So March 27th, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act was signed into law. It's known as the CARES Act. This is the law that had the refund checks that you heard about that were mentioned earlier. And it also included $349 billion that were to be grants through a lending program to small businesses. This was known as the Paycheck Protection Program. And this money that was set aside has been spoken for as of last Thursday. That being said, Congress is currently debating a new law that is supposed to put $250 billion back into the program And we thought it was important to talk about these programs tonight so that if it's something that you could take advantage of, now would be a good time to get ready, because we do think and are hopeful that banks will start taking applications again soon. Next slide, please. So there's 4 kind of big programs that can help small businesses. The economic injury disaster loans, that's an existing program. And what has happened over the past 2 months is that the federal government has allowed the disaster loans to be used in the case of coronavirus. They basically declared that coronavirus is a disaster on par with a flood or other kind of environmental disasters for which the government often allows small businesses to tap into loans. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that. The second program, again, is the Payroll Protection Program, which is a grant to help you pay the payroll for about 2 months, as well as some other expenses if you're a small business. Third and fourth, there's 2 programs that are really through the IRS, are really tax benefits. The first is that if you're a small business owner, you can defer some of the payroll taxes you pay, the employer part of the Social Security tax, you can defer it over 2 years and pay it at the end of that. And fourth, there's a tax credit. If you retain employees through this year, you can take up to $5,000 per employee that you employed during this year. Now, just as at this point, I think it's important for everyone to understand that the Payroll Protection Program, which we're going to talk about in a little more detail here, you cannot take part in that program and also get the benefit of these 2 other programs, deferring the payroll taxes or the employee retention tax credit. So as I talk a little bit about this program, think about in your mind what some of the figures and what some of the numbers and what some of the dollar amounts will be for you and your business, and then you can make a good decision about whether to go forward with the Payroll Protection Program. I would say it would be worth definitely holding on for a week or 2 before you take part in the other 2 programs, just to see, number one, again, hopefully Congress is going to put more money in the hopper for us, and 2, you just have to think about whether it's the right program for you. But we're going to get into more details here. All right, next slide. Okay, so first off, the economic injury disaster loans. Again, these are loans that are really kind of an existing program, but they've now been expanded to recognize the coronavirus as an economic disaster that a small business can use to go apply for one of these loans. Depending on what you want to use it for, you can get up to a $2 million loan. But the interesting part of this program, and something that you may have heard about, is that if you apply, you can get a $10,000 advance on the loan, and that can be forgiven by the government. That you don't actually have to pay back. That was actually written into the law because of the special circumstances that this is causing for small businesses. That application you actually make through the SBA, and this is among the 2 programs that are currently not accepting applications at this moment because they've just been overwhelmed. It's something that we're hopeful you will be able to do going forward, but stay tuned. There'll be news on that front. But I wanted to make sure you were aware of this loan program because it is something that could be helpful, particularly that $10,000 grant that you get for applying. I think, Lisa, I'm sure we'll have some more to add down the road when we have conversations about this. Okay, next slide, please. So the other big program that I suspect many of you may have heard about is the Payroll Protection Program. It's really a grant. The federal government has decided that this is such an important problem for our country that they want to deliver stimulus money to small businesses, to the employers, so that it can go to paychecks and go directly to the employees for the most part. There's two parts of this program. Instead of just delivering the money straight to small businesses, they're using the existing Small Business Administration loan program to administer the funds. So there's two parts to it. One, you apply for a loan with a participating lender. Pretty much all of the large national banks are participating. All of the regional banks are participating. And then there are a number of savings and loans that are participating. And we even have some new kind of financial tech companies like PayPal and others who are trying to be able to, you can actually apply through them to try to get the loan. But our advice would generally be to try to go with a bank that where you know somebody or have a relationship if possible. So the first part is you apply for the loan, you get the loan. Oh, it looks like I'm being joined by my dear daughter. Okay, I'm actually on live talking to some people. So. All right, that's my daughter Winifred. Hello, everyone. So the first part is you apply for the loan, you get the money, and then you spend the money for the next 8 weeks on payroll costs, paying your employees, and then a couple of other expenses that are allowed under the program. And at the end of that 8 weeks, you then apply for loan forgiveness, and the government will pay the loan, pay your portion of the loan that you spent on payroll. They'll pay that back to the lender. Next slide. Yeah, you could. Sorry, my children are very interested in my doing this right now. It's okay. Okay, so who's eligible? You have to have under 500 employees. There's an exception for hotel and restaurant chains. You can be a sole proprietor and apply, and you can be an independent contractor. So if you're someone who, most of your income is through a 1099, or you're really an independent contractor but not an employee, you can go to the bank, show them what your income has been under 1099 and apply for this as if you were a small business owner. You must prove your payroll costs with good records. And the reason is you have to establish the maximum loan amount, and later your accounting records are going to be used to apply for that loan forgiveness. So keeping track of every dime that you spend is going to be really important. Next slide, please. Okay, so to apply for the loan, and this is what those of you who are interested really need to think about right now, because again, we're basically just waiting for Congress to say go. We're just waiting for them to put more money in the program. At that time, you're going to want to talk to your lender, and you're going to want to bring them this paperwork. The amount of money you get is a formula based on what your average monthly payroll costs have been over the past 12 months. So once you come up with your average amount that you've paid workers, you take that, you multiply it by 2.5, and that's going to be your loan amount. Payroll costs include pay up to $100,000 per employee per year. They include healthcare benefits that the employer pays, and they include retirement benefits paid by the employer. At the end of the day, after you find out what that loan amount is, and then you apply for loan forgiveness, that loan will then be reduced. Any money you have left over is a low interest 1% loan over 2 years that you have to pay back to the bank. Next slide, please. To apply, it's really a 2-page application. You do have to certify that economic uncertainty has led to the need for you to get funds to help try to make payroll. I think most businesses would definitely say that they've been affected in some way by the coronavirus. If you're a business that is seeing an uptick in business, then you might need to think about whether you should move forward with it. But otherwise, if there's economic uncertainty of any type, that's the only requirement that there is. The backup documentation they're going to look at is they're going to want to look at your tax returns, and they're also going to want to look at the verification of payroll. So if you've issued W-2s to employees, or if you've issued 1099s to people, they're going to want to look at that. If you are an independent contractor and you've received 1099s, you're going to want to show your tax return, and you're going to want to show your 1099. Again, you're going to want to work with your lender to provide good, clear records, because basically they're the ones who are going to be accepting the application and moving you down into the system. Next slide, please. So this is actually a picture of the application, and this shows that calculation. You get your average monthly payroll. Okay, let's say that let's just say, for instance, that you pay $120,000 in payroll costs to your employees over a year. So that's really $10,000 a month as your average monthly. You multiply that by 2.5, so that would be $25,000. And then there's the number of people that you employ. Next slide, please. All right, so during that 8 weeks after you get your money, you're going to keep track of everything that you spend it on. Payroll costs are defined in the law. That's going to be the wages you pay. It's going to be health benefits. It's going to be state taxes. It's going to be local taxes, health benefits. If you happen to pay retirement benefits, that's all going to be included. In addition, during that 8 weeks, money you spent on business rent can be forgiven, money you spent on utilities for the business, and money that goes to interest on a mortgage that the business uses, all gets put into the forgiveness application, and all can be forgiven. Next slide. Again, if you have money that you can't spend during that 8 weeks, it just becomes part of a loan that's 2 years at 1%. There's no prepayment penalties or fees. And so, depending on what your risk tolerance is for loans, you could pay it back right after you do your forgiveness application. Next slide. If you have reduced the number of people you employ, the forgiveness is reduced by a pro rata share. The other rule that's important is that 75% of the money has to go to payroll costs. So the other amounts that can be forgiven for rent, mortgage interest, and utilities, that can't be more than 25%. Next slide. And this is another couple of certifications that you would make on the application. So the second one is kind of most interest. Loan forgiveness will be provided for the sum of documented payroll costs, covered mortgage interest payments, covered rent payments, and covered utilities. And so, again, the non-payroll costs can't be more than 25%, and everything really has to be documented. You're going to want to put, everything together in a nice schedule, so that when you go back to your lender and say, look, I did what the law said, I spent the money on this, this is what should be wiped clean. It should be good to go and easy for the bank or the lender to figure it out. Next slide. Okay. So we'll take questions on this towards the end. The one other thing I will say that's going to be really important is that getting into the program is going to have to do with having a good relationship with a lender and having somebody that you can talk to and help you talk through the application if you need it. And, just getting all the documents that they say they need to make sure that you're, eligible, having someone who's responsive that you can, shoot emails back and forth with to make it a clean application that gets approved right away. Again, watch the news. This week we may find it's up and going. There are some banks around the country who have continued to take applications, telling borrowers, we don't know if it's going to be open again. We expect it to be open. So there are still people actually getting in line. And so you should, if you're interested in this program, you should call the bank where you do business and tell them I'm interested, and find the person they would direct you to talk to about it. All right, with that, I think we're probably going to hand it over to Lisa. Next slide.
Me. All right, great. She's unmuted me. So my part of the presentation is I want to talk with everybody about relief for neighborhoods and small businesses. I am also a small business owner. So the things that Tim has talked about, I have been going through myself, and it has been a pretty crazy process because literally the rules have been changing on a daily basis. But I do have some great news, I think, for small businesses and neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So for neighborhood organizations, you can be a small neighborhood organization, or you can be what's considered just a loose group of organizations. You can be a block unit, a group of neighbors. You can just be anybody that's interested in doing good in your neighborhood and trying to stay connected. This is through Invest STL. It's called Neighborhood Innovations and Connectivity Application. And I can tell you that it was one of the most simple applications I have ever completed. I actually did this for one of the neighborhoods that I'm working in. I applied on a Wednesday and I got a yes on a Friday. I mean, it really is that simple. They're giving up to, and it's not a lot of money, but it's up to $500. And it's to do things like maybe you want to get a number for your neighborhood to have a hotline for people to call for information. Maybe you want to provide flyers. Maybe you want to put some signs in the community. Again, you have to do things to respect social distancing, so they allow you to be creative. But that information, that grant is on a rolling basis. So that means there is no deadline. You can apply until the money runs out. And that is eligible for every neighborhood in the city of St. Louis. Next slide. And so the second one, also by Invest STL, is called the CDC Stability Grant. So it's similar to the first grant, except for this one, you need to be in a formal neighborhood association. So if you're a neighborhood organization and you had to maybe lay off some staff, or you're trying to keep your operations going, this may be a little bit more money for you. But Community Builders Network is the organization that's providing technical assistance. And I neglected to say that SLACO is providing technical assistance on the first one that I announced. When you guys get a chance to go to the site afterwards and click, as you see it in the slide, that's a live link. So when you click on CDC Stability Application, it's going to take you directly to that page, to that application. If for some reason you don't have access to a computer, or it's not working properly, there is a phone number that you can call for technical assistance. It's such an easy application. They may even fill that out on the phone for you. Next slide, please. So this next grant opportunity is for nonprofits as well. It's from the Flourish Foundation. They typically provide funding around the health and well-being for Black families, around babies and pregnant moms. So they're also now allowing this funding to be available during this pandemic. So this application is also up to $5,000. It's also on a rolling deadline. Next slide, please. I didn't want to misspeak, but I do believe, this gives you an example of some of the things you can use the money for. You can deliver supplies, food, toiletries to homes, diapers, formula, cover utility bills for families, connect families with hotspots, address transportation. Next slide, please. I think they actually give you information. Yeah, that's what I wanted to be really clear about. The applications are due by noon every Wednesday. And then if you get selected for funding, they're going to notify you on Friday. So again, these links are live. If you click Brian Washington's email. It'll go directly to him, but his phone number is also there. But if you want to apply for the application, if you click that link, it'll take you directly to the application. Again, that's a $5,000 grant. Next slide, please. The St. Louis Community Foundation is seeking, this is for nonprofits as well. They're seeking partners to implement programs for individuals that are homebound, basic needs, pregnant and parenting families, food insecurity, healthcare safety, housing and homelessness, mental and behavioral health, justice-involved individuals, and immigrants and refugees. Next slide, please. This one is due tomorrow, 3 o'clock. I have not applied for this one personally because you needed to be a 501c3 organization, so a nonprofit, and you had to have been in operation for at least 2 years, I believe. And so, but I would encourage you to apply there. The funders are really coming together and joining forces and really trying to make these applications simple, because they realize that people have enough stress and enough things going on right now than to be bothered with a complicated funding application. So I definitely give credit to the funding community. They are trying to be responsive. So I would not worry about the application being due tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Do what I do, stay up all night. You can get it done. Next slide, please. So this is the timeline. That RFP was actually released on Monday. So as you can see, it wasn't a lot of time. It's not like this one's been out there for a long time. It's due tomorrow. They're going to announce grants on May 1st. And then the week of May 4th, the funds are going to be dispersed. So again, they're doing rapid turnaround. Next slide. Once again, I have linked the application. So if you click on that link, it'll take you directly to the application, and then it'll also take you to a budget template. And I believe that grant is for $10,000. Next slide. So that's just a cute slide I found, placeholder I found. There are some additional grants following. Next slide, please. So the Neighborhood Small Business Lift Grant. I promise you, I just did this in 10 minutes while I was waiting for this program to start, because it didn't come online until about 4 o'clock today. That's another one that's being offered by the Invest STL. I am going to type that link into the chat box so that everybody can see it. It is a very simple application to complete. I think it may be about 4 pages. And they're going to decide based on the size of the organization how much money you can apply for. But this grant just went online today at 4 o'clock. Next slide, please. The Save Small Business one. Now, this is $5,000 for small employers. You can employ between 3 to 20 people, be located in an economic and vulnerable community, and harmed financially by COVID-19, which is why we're all here today. I will say that this one went online today at 2 o'clock. I was sitting by my computer. I hit the button and the site crashed. So apparently everybody in the world is trying to apply for this one. This is actually being sponsored by, hit the next slide, because it's the Chamber of Commerce Foundation, but it's another organization that they're partnering with, Verizon Wireless. So, but you can pay for rent and utilities, meeting payroll, outstanding debt, other immediate operational expenses. I'm continuing to hit the button. So if it comes online, I will say keep checking it, because I've been trying it ever since 2 o'clock. Next slide. So what's next with this Verizon Wireless grant? Round one is closed, but if you click that link to register, they are going to start another round in mid-April. Next slide. I'm sorry. I thought it was gonna magically move. Okay, so here are some links to some other resources for small businesses. The regional chamber, that first link, they give really good resources on the funds that they have. That second link, the STL response, that's actually a community dashboard, and it gives you information not only about businesses, but personal, 211, there's a, energy assistance, things that are happening in different neighborhoods. This is a really good dashboard of what's happening all across the metropolitan area. And then that third one is the one that I just talked about. STL gives, the Invest STL, those 3 grants, the one for the small businesses that just released today, the one for nonprofit organizations, and then the one for just small neighborhood groups. So you could be a block unit, or you could just be a group of active citizens. They are looking for people to collaborate on those. We do have 79 neighborhoods. So if you're next to a neighborhood and you know another organization or another neighbor that you may be working with and you want to partner up and do something, they're definitely encouraging that. And then lastly, I would just say, be sure to call 211 for any and everything. If you don't even know where to call or where to go, call 211 and they can answer your questions. A new feature for 211 is if you press 1, you will be connected to Behavioral Health Network. Or if you just want somebody to talk, or if you're interested in connecting with a behavioral health professional. This is a stressful time for all of us. A lot of anxiety, and people just need someone to speak with. They have professionals on the end of that line for anybody to talk to. Next slide. Oh, that was the end. That was me. Okay. So you all, a lot of people are always asking me where I work and where I live, because I'm all over the place. So I decided to just put up all the places that I'm affiliated with. So it's not just you. I am all over the place, but I am affiliated with 10 or more organizations because I'm very passionate about community work. But you can always reach me. That is my cell phone number and that is my email address. So regardless of where you are trying to find me, I can always be reached there. Do we have any questions in that chat for us to reply to?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Lisa and Tim, for that very helpful information. We have a couple of questions from some of our viewers.
I should take notes.
Let me just let me pull this up for you guys.
Okay.
So our first question is from Ms. Carrie Blaylock. What if you are a business owner with employees, one employee specifically, that pays yourself directly through subdraw? Is there any assistance available? Will the Paycheck Protection Program apply in this scenario?
So let me just say I'm not exactly sure about not exactly sure what's meant by subdraw, but let me say this: if you are a sole proprietor, you are a sole self-employed individual or a sole proprietor of one business, and there's just one worker and it's you, you can apply. The program applies to you, and how it works is you look at your taxes. Hopefully you've got your 2019 done or almost in final form, and you show what your net profit was, and then you divide that by 12, and that's your average monthly payroll, and then you multiply that by 2.5, and then you're able, with the loan proceeds, to pay yourself for 2 months, and then the 0.5 of the 2.5 you can spend on business rent, business utilities, business mortgage. You keep records of all that and then send it back to the bank as part of your loan forgiveness and it can be forgiven. So yes, sole proprietors, self-employed individuals do count and are eligible.
Thank you for that. We have another question. What if I work solely with contractors and I have to issue a 1099? Will the Paycheck Protection Program provide relief for me?
So we had hoped that they would, but the regulations, this was one of the ways in which the regulations kind of changed how the law was. So Lisa mentioned about the fact that things were changing almost day by day, and this was true. The law was passed on at the end of March, and then every day for about a week there was new guidance and new regulations trying to explain how it would be put into practice. So what the regulations say is that those independent contractors that you pay, they are eligible to go apply for themselves. So the one thing that's very clear is that they don't want anybody to double dip. They don't want the employer of an independent contractor to get money to pay an independent contractor, and the independent contractor to also apply and get money to pay him or herself. So they've set this rule that it is the independent contractor who's supposed to go apply. And so if you pay independent contractors, you do not count them. That being said, if it's your business and you draw income from it, either if you pay yourself a salary or if you just get the profit that at the end of the year, you can take that and apply and pay yourself in that way. So
yeah, I have to admit that was disappointing, because when that first came out, that rule did not apply, and I was all set to apply for it. And no, it just so happens I bank with PNC, because they give you guidance on going to a bank that you have a relationship with. So for my business, I'm with PNC, and PNC's application portal wasn't open yet. And by the time PNC portal opened, the rules had changed. And so I was no longer eligible, because all of my staff are 1099 employees.
Yeah, I think it's really too bad because, well, I just think it's too bad. It's not how I would have written the regulation. You can see where they don't want to have anybody double pay, but they should be able to figure that out with you signing on the line, and also they look at your tax records. So
right. I will say that for those who are independent sole proprietors, you can, however, file for unemployment now. You did not used to be able to apply for unemployment if you were a sole proprietor, but again, because of COVID-19, that is a new law that has been written, and that link should be open now. I know it's been really hard to get in on a lot of things, but you are eligible to receive the regular unemployment plus the additional $600 that they are providing. So I would definitely encourage you to do that if you're independent or sole proprietor.
And that's a very good point, Lisa. I should discuss this, because this has certainly been a question for small business owners, particularly if you're a cash business like a restaurant. Right. There's this debate. Well, do I try to hang on and do this Paycheck Protection Program, or do I let my people go and get unemployment and then just see how long it's going to take with the stay-at-home orders, see when I can go back to 50% staff, see when I can go back to 75% staff. Mm-hmm. So the proposition as a business owner is that if you apply, you can get this loan money and start paying people probably, once this law gets passed and you have your application, it'd probably take about 2 weeks, 3 weeks at most, and you can get the money and start paying people. So, and if you hire them back during that time, you can pay them for 2 months. And then after that, whatever has to happen, has to happen. But certainly depending on what their pay is, that extra $600 a week in unemployment benefits is a real benefit for a lot of workers, particularly servers, waiters, waitresses, bar staff. So depending on what your business is like, sometimes unemployment is better for those employees. And so, especially with the extra payments that we currently have. So it's a business decision you've got to make about, what's going to be best for your people.
Great. Thank you for that information. We have another question from Michelle Darden, who asks, does anyone have any idea if any nonprofits were approved among the first round of Paycheck Protection Program applicants?
I am aware of nonprofits that were. If you are a 501c3, you are eligible. There's also nonprofits that are a special nonprofit that are veterans groups. They're eligible. Other types of nonprofits are not eligible, but 501c3s are. And I'm aware of a number of of clients that we have that were approved.
I hear that the money is coming. I hear that some people, y'all been on these webinars literally every Friday. And again, it's new information every Friday. From what I understand, some people have received funding and they're just saying to hold on. And unfortunately, there's no way to even check to see where you are in the pipeline or if you even made it. I was in the application change when Tim was talking about the EIDL, they nickname it the EIDL now. But it literally changed from week to week. The first time that the loan came out, you had to submit your taxes. Then they said you didn't have to submit your taxes, which was a great thing. And then it took, I think, 2 hours to complete the application. They redid the application and it literally only took 10 minutes. So they made some improvements to it. We can all just hope that they reallocate some additional funds so that people can apply under the new and improved, easier application instructions.
Thank you. We do have another question. Richard Sison asks, how does Lisa Potts get information on just release grant programs? Is there somewhere we can direct attendees or viewers to check in for this type of information, Ms. Potts?
Wow. Usually I have so many different connections. I got a lot of the information from legal services. And when I get the information, I just share it out to a number of neighborhood, organizations and people that I know. And I also send things to SLDC. What is her name? My mind just went blank. But it goes out. If anybody is interested in getting information and getting on the list, put your email into the chat and I will make sure that I add you to the mailing list. There are neighborhood lists that go out, I want to say weekly, from SLDC, and she must have thousands of people on her email list. But I can also start putting things on Nextdoor. I don't know if you're on Nextdoor. That's a very popular site and we can post things there. But this information, all these grants and things that I announced today, I literally just found over the weekend. So the timing was just perfect because we were preparing for this event. But if you send me your email, I will absolutely add you to the email list and make sure that you get access to the information. Also, I would say if you're connected to a neighborhood association, SLACO, which stands for the St. Louis Association of Community Organizations, as well as the Community Builders Network. They are also a very great resource for bringing organizations together. Community Builders Network has a call every Friday. Anybody can log on to those calls and we're really just kind of checking in to see what's happening, who needs help with things. And so a lot of information is shared there as well.
Thank you for that, Ms. Potts. We have another question. This is from Shekinah Williams. Do you have any resources for surrounding areas like St. Charles City or County?
I do not, but that regional chamber link is regional. So it will connect you to a lot of different resources. And then that dashboard link is also regional.
Thank you. I have one last question. Ms. Potts, of the programs you discussed, will any of that funding have to be repaid? And will it hurt my chance to participate in the Paycheck Protection Program?
It should not. All of the programs that I talked about tonight were grants. And so they have nothing to do with SBA or now, Tim, that may be a good question when you, as a small organization. So like next year, when it's time for us to apply, file our taxes, will we have to count that as 1099 as extra income this time next year when we file for taxes?
So this is the really amazing thing about the the Payroll Protection Program. The forgiven amount. So again, it's set up like a loan, and then you keep your documents, and then you get it forgiven. Normally, if somebody pays a loan off for you, that's like income, and it's taxable. This is not taxable. That's actually in the law. So in addition to being able to replace lost income, it's not taxed to the business.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a great thing. So get your last year's documents in order, and get ready and call your lender if you think you might be interested in it, because now's the time to get that paperwork done, because hopefully later this week you'll have an opportunity to apply again.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let's see an additional question. What if I do not have a relationship with the traditional bank? Will that hurt my ability to participate in the Payroll Protection Program?
So this is Tim. So I'd love to get Lisa's take on it too, but I will tell you this. You don't have to have a relationship with a quote traditional bank, but you do need to reach out to a lender of some sort. So whether that's a savings and loan, a lender who is approved to handle these loans. So it could be a savings and loan. It could be some kind of non-traditional sources. PayPal was interested in getting into it. I'm not sure if they've actually, because they're a lender now. I'm not sure if they're actually up and running. Square was interested in doing it. I'm not sure if they're up and running yet, but let me check, and we'll try to put some more links up if they are. So that's one opportunity. But if you hopefully you might have a relationship with a savings and loan that can get you there, or some other community resource that can get you into the hands of somebody who's handling these and accepting these applications. Lisa?
Yeah, I would add to contact Justine Peterson. They are what's considered a micro loan, and they're community friendly. I would try them, and then I would try one of the credit unions. I know that Together First Credit Union have been advertising and talking about accepting loans and they have been processing loans, quite a few for people. But the bigger banks, unfortunately, were so overwhelmed with their existing customers that they weren't able to accept new customers. But I would definitely try a credit union, and like I say, call Justine Peterson.
And one more thing I will say to sound kind of a hopeful note, the government is paying fees, so the banks make a fee on the loan because they're basically doing all the work to check all the paperwork, and so the government's paying, and for the lower smaller loan amounts, they're getting a higher fee. They get 5%. So it's that really helps these community lenders be a part of this and be helped. So at any rate, there are people, there are banks that are looking to really serve sole proprietors and small businesses.
I'm going to put Justine Peterson's contact information into the chat, but it's at 1023 North Grand Boulevard. And they're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Potts and Mr. O'Connell, for all of the very, very helpful information. And to each of you watching, thank you for joining us for another Money Monday presentation. For those of you who have submitted your contact information in the chat box, we will be deleting those comments to protect your privacy, and we will add you, make sure that you're added to those listservs so that you continue to receive updated information about grant opportunities that may be beneficial to you or your community. Please join us next week. Next Monday at 6:30 right here on Facebook Live for our next Money Monday presentation. On April 27th, we will discuss the importance of beneficiary deeds, wills, and estate planning tools designed to protect you, your family, and your assets in case of an emergency. Today's session and recordings from our prior events are saved on our Facebook page. For additional information and other COVID-19 resources, please visit our website at lsem.org/COVID-19-updates. And feel free to follow our Facebook page for additional information and updates as they become available. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again. Happy Money Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.